World of Warfare presents Operation Valkyrie and the July 20 Plot. Before the outbreak of World War II, at least 7 attempts by German resistance groups to assassinate Adolf Hitler had all but failed in ending the dictator's life, leading Hitler to become increasingly paranoid over the recurring threats to his life, adding layers of armed guards for his protection, while frequently making last-minute changes to his schedule. As war raged throughout Europe, a group of high-ranking German military leaders and civilians began to recognize that Hitler's suicidal two-front war would lead to the total destruction of Germany at the hands of advancing Allied forces, opting instead for yet another assassination attempt before staging a coup d'etat against remaining Nazi leaders. Led by Generals Ludwig Beck, Friedrich Olbricht, Henning von Tresckow, Lieutenant Colonel Klaus Stauffenberg, and Karl Friedrich Stülpnagel, the military governor of France, during a planned meeting at Hitler's Wolfslair bunker on July 20, 1944. Stauffenberg planted a briefcase packed with high explosives under a conference table to be used for an upcoming high-level meeting with the Führer, departing the room on a trumped-up story about taking an important phone call. Unbeknownst to Stauffenberg, another officer moved the briefcase away from Hitler's seat before the bomb detonated at 12:42 that afternoon. 4 people were mortally wounded, while Hitler suffered only minor injuries, remaining well enough to keep an appointment with Benito Mussolini before giving the Italian dictator a tour of the bomb site. The main conspirators of the July 20 plot were a mix of civilian and active military officers who shared a unified conservative nationalistic perspective and an aristocratic background, while the civilian conspirators had all resigned from the Nazi Party during Hitler's increasingly vitriolic policies of the 1930s. For instance, Karl Friedrich Goerdler had been mayor of Leipzig from 1930 to 1937 until he resigned his position in protest of the Nazis' anti-Jewish policies. Ludwig Beck, on the other hand, had been a general in the Wehrmacht who resigned his commission in 1938 in opposition to Hitler's aggressive and illegal rearmament and future war plans. The motivations of the conspirators were most likely varied and remain contested by scholars to this day, but what is known is that Goerdler objected to Nazi anti-Jewish policy and the general mismanagement of the war, which in his mind was leading Germany into ruin. Tresckow as well appeared to be deeply troubled by the Nazis' anti-Semitic policies when he described the coordinated riots against Jews during Kristallnacht in November of 1938 as an act of open and unrestrained barbarism. Despite their protests against anti-Semitism, some of the conspirators in the July 20 plot proved to be little more than repentant hypocrites who committed war crimes and genocide of European Jews. For example, Stülpnagel had closely coordinated with Einsatzgruppen units who committed the mass murder of Jews in occupied Soviet Union when he commanded the 17th Army during Operation Barbarossa, further coordinating a relationship with Einsatzgruppen units and the Wehrmacht to starve Soviet prisoners of war, which resulted in millions of Soviet deaths. Yet for many of the conspirators, the attempted assassination of the Führer had a more pragmatic objective of rescuing the German motherland from catastrophic defeat due to increasing Allied attritional strength, all at a time when Hitler's irrational management of the war became further addled by drug addiction and visible signs of mental deterioration, including depression, amphetamine psychosis, Parkinson's disease, and paranoia. Nor was the July 20 plot their first wartime attempt to assassinate Hitler, when in late 1942, Tresckow and Olbricht conspired to place a bomb on Hitler's plane before a flight in March of 1943 to visit Army Group Center's headquarters at Smolensk. Codenamed Operation Spark, due to the conspirators' belief that Hitler's death would spark an internal coup d'etat to overthrow the Nazi regime and thereby end the war. Their objectives fell short when the bomb failed to detonate in flight. A week later, a second attempt would also fail when Hitler attended an exhibition of captured Soviet war weapons in Berlin. By mid-1943, the tide of war was turning decisively against Germany, prompting the July 20 conspirators to try yet again to kill the Führer, so that a government acceptable to the Allies could be formed before a separate peace could be negotiated in an effort to prevent a Soviet invasion of Germany. To achieve their aims, Tresckow met with Stauffenberg in August of 1943, where together they drafted revisions to the initial framework for Operation Valkyrie, which had originally been designed to militarily combat potential civil unrest as German cities became an increasing focus of the Allies' strategic bombing campaign. Instead, the conspirators modified the plan for their own ends, with the intention of taking control of German cities before disarming the SS and arresting key Nazi leaders in the wake of Hitler's assassination, which would then be blamed as a coup by the Nazi Party itself against its now demented leader. As for the implementation of Operation Valkyrie after Hitler's assassination, Germany's reserve army would disarm loyal SS units by seizing key installations in Berlin, before arresting high-ranking Nazi officials such as Minister of Propaganda Joseph Goebbels. Meanwhile, upon receipt of the Valkyrie orders, Stauffenberg would consolidate army power in France, while during the confusion following Hitler's death, Hermann Göring, Heinrich Himmler, and other key Nazi leaders would be arrested, before establishing Gödler as Chancellor of Germany and Beck as its president. Originally planning to place 2 briefcase bombs in Hitler's briefing room at Wolf's Lair, Stauffenberg was unable to arm the second bomb in time. After the one remaining bomb detonated yet failed to kill Hitler, news of his survival was not immediately known to the conspirators, after a Hitler loyalist cut off all communications to Berlin and the German High Command. In response to the communications blackout, Stauffenberg returned to Berlin to coordinate the implementation of Valkyrie. At first, the plan appeared to be advancing smoothly as the German Reserve Army began to take action, until delays, confusion, and broken communication channels robbed the coup of its initiative, which quickly unraveled when Hitler's survival was broadcasted to the German people. Major Otto Ernst Remmer, who played a key role in stopping the plot, was promoted to colonel before ending the war as a major general. However, the conspirators fared far worse in the days following the failed July 20 plot. Hitler soon ordered a massive hunt for conspirators, which continued for months after the bomb explosion at Wolf's Lair. In August of 1944, some of the apprehended perpetrators were brought to justice before the notorious People's Court of Roland Freisler, a fanatical Nazi judge, after Hitler ordered those found guilty to be hanged like cattle. The mock trials were filmed for the benefit of the German public, shown in movie newsreels, where Freisler would alternate between questioning the defendants in an analytical manner before launching into furious verbal tirades by shouting insults at the accused from the bench, designed to psychologically disarm, torment, and humiliate those on trial. While most of the accused never lost their dignity on the stand, thousands of innocent Germans were falsely accused during Freisler's monkey trials, many executed within hours after their convictions. Some executions were more brutal than others, including the death of German Admiral and Chief of the Abwehr, Wilhelm Canaris, who was hanged on a butcher hook, a carryover method derived from medieval times. Before killing himself with a hand grenade in the no man's land between Russian and German lines on the Eastern Front, Tresckow said, "The whole world will vilify us now, but I am still totally convinced that we did the right thing. Hitler is the arch enemy not only of Germany, but of the world. When in a few hours' time I go before God, to account for what I have done and left undone, I know I will be able to justify what I did in a struggle against Hitler. Some of us can bewail his own death. Those who consented to join our circle put on the robe of Nessus. A human being's moral integrity begins when he is prepared to sacrifice his life for his convictions. Erwin Rommel was also linked to the plot, but was given the choice of standing trial or committing suicide in an effort to spare his family. Opting for the latter, the Nazis covered up the true cause of death for the renowned field marshal before honoring him with a state funeral. By the time that the July 20 trials had come to an end, more than 7,000 people had been arrested, with 4,980 executed for their crimes against the German state.